Hi, my name is Dan Breeker, and I'd like to welcome you to the CO2 integration project. The other PIs and I thought that you might have some questions about what we envision for the collection of new data. And so I have a short presentation that I hope starts to answer some of those questions for you. So the first thing we thought you might be wondering about is how we envision sample sharing to work. And our ideas here are that either you as a participant will make measurements in your own laboratory, and we have some modest funding available for that we can talk about with you, or that you'll send us samples and that the analyses will be done in one of our laboratories. And then in terms of archiving samples, this is something that we're not entirely sure that we want to do or that we're going to be able to do, but we'd like to discuss ideas and opinions about this at a future workshop, perhaps this summer. So who's going to make these measurements? And of course, for samples that are analyzed in your own laboratories, that's up to you. But if you send us samples, it will either be that you also send us students and postdocs from your lab. They can visit our labs and help make those measurements. Or another option is that our postdocs that are in the PI's labs will make those measurements. And what kind of data are we thinking about collecting here? So we're primarily interested in stomatal and paleosol carbonate-based records of atmospheric CO2. And in terms of the stomatal data, stomatal frequencies have been commonly measured. But if we also measure stomatal size and the delta C13 value of leaf cuticles, this will help us further constrain CO2 using a leaf gas exchange proxy. And so it's the stomatal size and the cuticle delta C13 that we're really targeting for new data collection for the stomatal-based proxies. For paleosol carbonates, we're targeting the delta C13 values of occluded organic matter, right? So that's organic matter that's trapped inside of the carbonate nodules. And that's going to help us proxy the delta C13 value of soil-respired CO2. And then also the clumped isotope composition of the paleosol carbonates. And we know we're not going to be able to do that for all the samples. Some may have experienced too high diagenetic temperatures, but for some select samples, we want to measure the clumped isotope compositions. We also think that this may help us determine respiration rates or at least inform the respiration rates that are simulated by the proxy system models. So I should note here that if you have not already viewed the short video on the modeling component of this work, then you should listen to Gabe Bowen talk about that. And I also want to note that we don't, as part of this project, have any explicit plans to proxy soil-respired CO2. Rather, we envision that we will estimate soil CO2 and atmospheric CO2 together using the available data and the soil proxy system models that we envision creating. But we would certainly welcome discussion of SFZ proxies at future workshops. Okay, so we're talking about collecting new data. When will those data be published and who will publish them? So you as a participant will be encouraged to publish the new data from your samples as soon as possible. Of course, the timing of all that is really up to you. These are your data. That's how we're thinking about them. The one thing that we request is that if you send us samples and PIs working in our laboratories are the ones that analyze those samples, that you include those postdocs as authors on the publications. And then the PIs plan to eventually publish a Phanerozoic CO2 curve using all these constraints, all these new and existing data, and the authorship of that will be broad. We don't really know the details of that yet, but that's again something that we can discuss at these workshops. And then the final thing here is that spreadsheets for archiving all of these data will certainly facilitate the publication of a Phanerozoic CO2 curve. So we will circulate templates of these spreadsheets to you as participants. We would like you to fill them out. There will be some support for that from the postdocs as part of this project. And that's, again, something that we can start looking at some of these future workshops. What do these spreadsheets look like and what do they involve? And then finally, where would the data be archived? So those spreadsheets that contain all those data will be archived on the NOAA WDS Paleo server, and the data will be available at paleoco2.org. I have a screenshot of the homepage here on my slide. And the idea is that this will increase the visibility of your data, allow them to be shared with the community for people that maybe don't know as much about which records to pick, or paleoatmospheric CO2 in general. This will help, we hope, publicize your data. And then the final thing that I want to leave you with is that we do have a couple of very short workshops coming up. There are some options for when you can attend. There is one on January 21st, and there's one on January 24th, and we hope to see you at least one of those. Okay, that's it for me.